So this week we are continuing with our opinions in writing, and in fact, an opinion with reading. For reading today, I'm going to read this book all the way to the top. This is a girl's fight for disabilities in America, the Americans with Disabilities Act. She changed a lot of things. So she is an activist. It's one of your vocabulary words, and she had was involved in activism. So she wanted to bring about change. So to bring about change, she had to become an activist. And this is a true story. This actually happened. Um, this is by Jennifer Keeling Chaffins. I was born with cerebral palsy, which meant I had to use a wheelchair to help me get around every single day. From a young age, I learned that businesses or buses, museums, libraries, and even schools that were accessible for my able bodied peers were not accessible to me because there were no real wheelchair ramps. Imagine not being able to join with your friends because you can't get into the building where they're meeting. I felt left out. I did not like being separated from everyone, especially my younger sister Kaylee. And my family and I realized that people with disabilities were not treated as equally or as able bodied people. So we decided to join a disabilities rights movement to help change things for the better. I participated in my very first protest in Phoenix, Arizona in 1987 when I was 6 years old. This was the first time I saw people with disabilities protesting for their rights to be recognized as equals. At first, I didn't know quite what to think, but after carefully observing the adults in this protest, both my sister and I realized that both the people with disabilities had the right to be treated like everyone else, and that Kaylee and I did not have to be separated. As one of the very few young children who got to be closely involved in disabilities rights movement, I recognized that very important responsibility had been placed on me. I wasn't just representing myself, I was also representing my generation and future generations of children with disabilities who also felt left out and struggled for the same rights as everyone else. It was the responsibility that led me to participate in the big protest called the Capitol Crawl, a decision a lot of people say helped convince Congress to pass an important law for disability rights, the Americans with Disability Act. I hope to, by sharing my story, kids everywhere will see you don't have to be all grown up to make a difference. If you believe in something, say it out loud for everyone to hear. The passing of the Americans with Disabilities Act was a big win for disability rights and movements, but we still have a long way to go, and I keep my voice to speak up for what I think is right, and you can too. Jennifer Keelan may be small, but her voice is mighty. Yeehaw! Snowball responds, speeding up from the walk to a trot. Jennifer loves to go fast, but she knows she'll soon have less time for riding since she's finally old enough for school. She can't wait to make new friends. She is ready to go. The school's not far. Jennifer rolls outside down the sidewalk to the corner. But stop. 4-inch curbs is a cliff to someone who uses a wheelchair. Her grandpa eases her wheelchair over the curb. Then the bus jolts. Jennifer, she makes it to the building, but stop! The school says Jennifer doesn't belong because she uses a wheelchair. Instead, Jennifer and her mom find a different school that says she can attend kindergarten, but only for part of the afternoon when lunch is over. As Jennifer rolls in each day, everyone is already busy. She has to figure out what's going on and how to join in. Most kids have never met someone who uses a wheelchair. Her classmates are confused and even a little afraid. You'll never be one of us, they say. Jennifer knows they're wrong. She's just a friend waiting to happen. But how do you change someone's mind? She's not sure, but she's not about to give up. Jennifer and her family hear about the activists who are working to make people working to make sure people with disabilities have access to public places like schools. They want to know more, so they attend a strategy meeting. Jennifer has never seen anything like it. The room is full of grown-ups and with all sorts of disabilities. Some use wheelchairs, some use canes. None of them are sitting around waiting for things to change. They're shouting and laughing and planning a big protest to get wheelchair lifts on buses. And they turn to Jennifer. Do you want to come? Yes, she wants to go. Downtown, Jennifer rolls her to the microphone and tells her story. She leads marches through the streets chanting, "The people united will never be defeated." It feels good to speak up for what she believes in. She can't wait to do it again. She's raring to go. She protests in Phoenix. She rolls through the streets of San Francisco. She waves signs in Montreal. The demonstration don't always change people's minds, but Jennifer is used to that. Even when her neighborhood school finally agrees to attend, she and her classmates with disabilities aren't allowed to eat in the cafeteria with everyone else. That hurts, but she keeps going. Working with the other activists revs her up, yet she can't help noticing that her sisters are usually one with the kids raising their voices. Still, she can't leave out the protesting to the grown-ups. She knows firsthand that children with disabilities get ignored too. So she keeps speaking up. When Jennifer is 8, activists propose a new law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. The law insists that schools, governments, and businesses must make room for all people, including people with disabilities. Jennifer feels like dancing. If it passes, it means sidewalks with curb cuts, buildings with ramps in addition to steps, and elevators with braille panels. It meant Jennifer and her classmates with disabilities can finally go to the cafeteria with everyone else and eat lunch. Jennifer and her family watch the news for updates on the ADA about the reporters, but the reporters never mention it. She switches off the TV in frustration, wishing she could change reporters' minds and what's worth talking about. Instead, the Keelans get updates about the ADA when the activists' friends call. It's bad news. Members of Congress say they will be too complicated and too expensive. They say it's just not worth it. Since the news station is ignoring people with disabilities, Jennifer and her friends are determined to find another way to make Congress hear their voices. It's go time, and her family buys a plane ticket to Washington, D.C. The march down Pennsylvania Avenue. Jennifer has never shouted louder. What do we want? The ADA! When do we want it? Now! Finally, they reach the capital of the U.S. But stop! A mountain of steps block Jennifer and other people from using the wheelchairs from the building where Congress makes the laws. Grown-ups slide out of their wheelchairs and start pulling themselves up the steps. They will make sure members of Congress know they are here. Jennifer's heart races. This is what she's been shouting about. I want to climb the steps, she says. But stop! The grown-ups think she's too young. You can't do it. Jennifer knows this is not about her. It's about her friends at school who were shut out of the cafeteria at lunch. It's about millions of other kids she's never met who get stopped at every turn. Jennifer wants to speak up for all those kids with disabilities who aren't there. I need to climb the steps. She slides out of her wheelchair, scoots along the sidewalk on the bottom of the stairway, and puts her hands on the first step. She hauls herself up. Tiny bits of dirt and rocks stick into her skin. She drags herself up another step. The crowd roars. Reporters surround her with cameras and microphones recording her gutsy climb. I'll take all night if I have to, she vows, and she keeps heaving and hauling and dragging herself up those steps. She keeps going all the way to the top. Handicapped stage crawling with protest steps of the Congress. Pictures of Jennifer climbing the steps flash around the world. Reporters start asking questions about the ADA, and members of Congress see the news. They listen to the activists, and finally they pass the ADA. Laws like the ADA don't change things overnight, though. Entrances have to be rebuilt, sidewalks have to be redesigned, and buses re-engineered. Slowest of all, minds have to change. So Jennifer will continue shouting and waving signs and organizing and explaining, and she will continue fighting for what she knows is right. Jennifer has places to go, and nothing will stop her now. Okay, there's an actual picture of her. That is her on the steps of Washington, D.C., crawling up the steps. And this talks about the whole fight for that the activists had to go through to get, and it shows you the timeline of the ADA In 2017, she graduated Arizona State University. But the ADA is a very important bill, and it never would have came about if she would not have taken the stand and spoke up. So your vocabulary words today have to do, or this week I should say, have to do with this book. And first one is an activist. This is an activist, a person who fights for the things and tries to bring about change in their community. This is an activism is the action. So an activist is involved in activism, the act of taking action. Then freedom to be able to act, think, or speak as you want, as long as you don't hurt others. And that's something we have in our country that a lot of countries do not have. One way that you've heard about when we talked about Rosa Parks last year, the boycott. The people can refuse to participate. That's one way you can affect change sometimes. Because we live in a democracy, we have a government that is for the people and we vote our leaders in. So that is why activism works in America, because lawmakers know that we can vote them out of office if we don't like what they do. And when you share your opinion, you do have a responsibility to do what is right and control your words and your actions. You do not have the right to hurt people with your words. You can state your opinion, but you don't have the right to hurt others. And we have rights, and they are called the human rights, which is what the ADA is trying to help. Everybody has rights, rights that allow you to speak your opinion and live the life you want as long as you do not hurt others. And these are some of the human rights for all that you hear a lot in the news: freedom, trust, justice, love, rule of law, peace, responsibility, dignity, equality. So these are your vocabulary words this week. These are the words you're going to work on, and you'll have a little quiz on them. But today, I just want you to think about something you feel strongly about. Tomorrow, we're going to read another book about little kids that join the Women's March, which is another form of protest. There's lots of ways people protest. They can march, they should have demonstrations, they have sit-ins, they have walkouts. And this one was the Capitol Crawl, which was famous. But this little girl actually did it. She was 8 years old. She's a year younger than most of you. So I thought this was an important book to help us understand our vocabulary for this week. And today you're just going to go to Raz Kids and read a book and do a test. And that is your reading assignment for today.